We have, first of all, I guess I should go through and just identify as a group our candidates we have here today. We have R.C. McBride, Kathleen Lorenz, Stan Nord, Dave Shields, Karen Smith, Pat Turner, Alex Campbell, Joel Studebaker, and Carl Silva, who is a write-in candidate. Sela with no V. My apologies, Carl. My apologies. If I don't have my script written down properly, I'm going to mess it up. So now I've got it correct. Thank you, Carl. All right, so we're going to ask them. Our first draw of the morning was by Joel Studebaker. So Joel, if you will come up, please, and share.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Studebaker. Thank you for being here this morning. I already feel kind of strange standing here behind this podium, but I'm going to try not to let them get to me. So I'm excited. Is there a microphone?
No, you just have to project.
Okay. So I'm very excited to be here to talk to you about my vision for Normal. I've lived here since 2008 in Normal, Illinois. I came here for Illinois State University, like so many people, and fell in love with the community, so I stuck around. I tried to leave twice. First, to student teach. I got my degree here in music education, and went off to student teach up in the suburbs, and then ended up right back working at ISU. And then I decided to go and teach for real, and ended up in a community about an hour north, thankfully close enough that I could drive down every weekend and still be a part of the community. And then ended up back here working at Illinois State University. So I keep getting pulled back to this community and have made it my home because it's so great. And that's a big part of the reason that I decided to run for Normal Town Council, because I've seen what can happen in this community. I've experienced what it's like to be a part of this community, and I just want to help be a part of making it better. So I want to talk about the three things that I think we can do better, and what my plan for those things would be. Those fall into three basic categories: transparency, stewardship, and fairness. On the first, we have transparency. And I think that over the past couple of years, a lot of residents of Normal have kind of started to notice things that they hadn't noticed before. And part of this is that as national politics have only gotten more and more contested, we've started to notice trends in our local community. And if you're like me, when you first heard about things, you might have wanted to go and learn more. You might have wanted to better understand what exactly is a TIF district? How are we funding things in Uptown Normal? How is all of this working? Where is all of our money going? And if you're like me, you might be frustrated when you find that it's not always easy to find the answers. You have to dig sometimes. You have to, have conversations with people just to get access to basic documents that would be easy enough to download to look through. And then when you're ready to maybe talk to somebody and make your ideas known, we've got very restrictive policies that make it difficult for you to go and talk to our town council and make your ideas heard. And so I want to try to make that easier for everybody. One, by improving our online system for storing information and making that accessible to anybody who wants it without having to go through a lot of hoops to make a request. Also saving time for our town staff who have to respond to FOIA requests because that wastes a lot of time. But also just to make public comment easier, not just through expanding our system at council meetings, but also by creating new ways for people to engage. I'm currently serve on the Normal Public Library Board, and a couple of years ago we went through an exploratory process to look at building a new library. And we had an incredible process for that allowed the community to come and engage in a number of ways, at a number of meetings. And really, just something we even heard from the architects is that it was the ideal process. And it gave us the opportunity to really get the feedback we needed. Those are the types of things I'd like to see our town implementing when we're talking about big decisions, like some of what's happening in Uptown right now. Second thing I want to talk about is stewardship. I'm a really, really big fan of stewardship. I think it's the most important thing for our government to do. And what stewardship means is making sure that we do a good job with the taxes that we bring in to make sure that you're actually getting paid for the buck. and also that the things that the town owns and is responsible for, we take care of them. So I'm frustrated when I see that, for example, we've been giving land away to developers, land that we own, taxpayers own, and we give it away to developers who are going to turn it around and make a profit on it. That doesn't make a lot of business sense to me, because what makes sense to me is that we do what's in the best interest of the taxpayer and not in the best interest of the developer. Finally, I want to talk about fairness. This all works together because when we look at some of these developments, what we end up seeing is that they get incentives, significant incentives, that allow them to make a good profit. Those incentives often take the form of a tax rebate. They don't pay their fair share of property taxes, and that means that the rest of us are left to pick up the tab. I don't think that's right, and so I want to make sure that we have policies that protect homeowners and property owners who live in Normal from suffering the consequences of really making deals that only benefit people who are investing in our community but don't actually live here. I think my time is up, so thank you very much, everybody, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Our next candidate that I am calling to the front is R.C. McBride. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for inviting all of us. Thanks as well for the offer of breakfast. There's an old joke that, between me and a free breakfast is a pretty dangerous place to be. So I very much appreciate you providing that for us. So, and I've also said this before. I said this at another forum, but I think it's important to say this almost to remind myself, but really we should, I think, applaud everyone who is running and putting themselves out there. And a lot of you in this room have run for office, and you know the stress involved, and it's not an easy thing to do. So, and while there are 8 of us on the ballot, and certainly it would be a lot easier for me if there were only 3 of us on the ballot, it might be inconvenient for me, but it's good for democracy. So I think it's a good thing that we have such a diverse field. My name is R.C. McBride, and I am asking for one of your 3 allotted votes for a second term on the Normal Town Council. A little bit about my background for those of you who don't know. I'm originally from Danville, Illinois, and I came to the town of Normal for the first time as an Illinois State student back in 1993. I was amazed then, as I am now, at what a vibrant place Bloomington Normal is. But I think it's very important that we keep perspective. There are a lot more Danvilles in the Midwest than there are Bloomington Normals. Danville, for instance, was a great place to live 50 years ago. Then all those blue-collar jobs started floating away, and that wasn't necessarily the fault of the community, but they had no way forward. They had no plan. And today, Danville still has usually the highest unemployment rate in the entire state. So as we move through this, you're going to hear some things in the heat of the campaign, and that's all part of it, and that's all understandable. But I would like to just present some facts and some accomplishments over the last 4 years during my time on the council. A new comprehensive plan. And by the way, when you want to talk about engagement, that was a process that had numerous public meetings and involved over 2,000 residents and stakeholders in the town of Normal. And also, much like the library process, was really a well-done process. An updated Uptown plan, a balanced budget every year, and a continued AAA bond rating. A $10 million reduction in our bonded debt. Mitsubishi is now Rivian. We have a stronger relationship with Unit 5. We've invested millions in police, fire, street, park, water, and sewer infrastructure. We've invested in community mental health. We've invested in Connect Transit. We built a brand new fire headquarters and invested in that. We moved our billing for services to monthly. That may not sound like a big deal to some of you in the room, but the fact is, if you're on a fixed income, and even if you're not, it's a lot easier to budget that way. And by the way, since then, in the 10 months since we've done that, our water shutoffs are down 50% as a direct result. Now, it's not perfect, but it certainly is progress. While we're on the subject maybe of fixed incomes, I'd like to also mention something else about my background. I'm an unabashed advocate of the safety net. Because the fact is, without community health clinics, county health clinics, free school lunch, food stamps, Pell Grants, It's not likely I'm where I am today. Now, that's not necessarily always the town's purview, but there's no question that we all need to work together as a community to create opportunity for everyone, and that's a key word, opportunity. We need to bring in more jobs. We need more variety in housing stock, including more entry-level housing. In short, we need to continue to invest in ourselves financially, emotionally, and with the sweat of our brow. My wife and I decided to stay here to raise our family, and that's because it's a great place to do so. You all know that. This community has given our daughters everything they need to succeed, to contribute, to help others, whether that's beyond this community or here in town. Selfishly, I wouldn't mind it if it's here, but they'll make their own path. We should be very proud of that. But we can never take it for granted. Communities that don't look to the future, that don't plan, that don't invest in themselves, that defer maintenance. We've got business owners in here. We know what happens when you put off maintenance too long. Those that make short-sighted decisions, like selling off a public water system, as has been suggested by some. Those communities don't only stagnate, it's okay. Those communities go backwards. I don't think we settle for the status quo here. I don't settle for the status quo. And I believe I have the experience, the thoughtfulness, the balance, the ability to listen, the accessibility, the ability to make tough calls, and yes, the temperament to keep our community moving forward. And therefore, I ask for your vote to continue to serve you for another term on the Normal Town Council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And even did it before the bill. Our next candidate that we're happy to have here with us this morning is Karen Smith. Karen?
Good morning. My name is Karen Smith. I am number 5 on the ballot because I didn't get up early enough to enter the lottery. I currently teach at Illinois State University in the College of Business. I'm in the accounting department, and I bring that expertise to bear in my pursuit of a seat on the town council. I am one of 10 children. My father was one of 13 and served with the Marines in World War II. And I do believe a safety net is important, but we did on our own because in 1963, when he required a heart valve and had an extended stay in the Veterans Hospital in Cincinnati, it was my 2 older brothers that continued his milk route, and thankfully law enforcement looked the other way when they caught my brother, who was only 15 at the time, driving the route one day. So I understand the importance of doing for yourself, but one of the reasons I'm running for town council is my daughter is special needs, and she cannot do for herself, and she will live here long after my husband and I are gone. And I want to make sure her needs and the needs of individuals like her are represented. As I heard one person say in a radio interview, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And I don't want her concerns getting short shrift or being arbitrarily eliminated from any budget decisions. So to me, it is important that the town council be mindful of its responsibilities and its fiscal management. One of my career times, I did financial feasibility studies for major projects, primarily in the retirement housing industry. I would do the research to determine whether or not a market existed for a new facility. I would crunch the numbers to determine whether or not the project would work projected into the future. And my concern in looking at town council and their plan for future development is that some of these feasibility studies may not have told the whole story. And as the plan continues to move forward, we are looking at buildings that have vacancies from earlier developments, and yet the town council is proceeding full bore forward on its newest plan, the Trail East project. And so what I would like to see is a pause on that development until we have an audit of Uptown 1 at least, to look at and compare what were the original projections for that project and how does that compare to the reality that has come to fruition as we continue to look at that vacant space on the first floor street level for that retail section of that structure. And just recently, the town acknowledged that the space in the basement of the garage that is adjacent to the Hartman Bank and used by Amtrak, that too was intended for commercial development, and none of that has proceeded forward. So that is one of the things I feel should be a pressing concern as we look to the future of the town of Normal. And in an effort to bring about development that everyone agrees about, I personally have a passion for the library. And in an effort to help fund that, one of the things I've noted is that there is property that the town owns that maybe could be brought into the rolls. To say that if the town owns it, it's not part of the tax base. Well, then why aren't we looking at selling it to a private landowner who would then put it into the tax base? In my own situation, our home abuts to the Constitution Trail, and I discovered that we didn't own that, all of it up to the trail, when the Parks Department cut down some of my hostas. Now, beyond the fact that they should have recognized a hosta, I did talk to them to discover that we didn't own it, and there are 4 out of 11 lots just in my neighborhood that aren't owned by homeowners. Why not inventory that, come up with a plan to approach those homeowners to see if they would not be interested in purchasing that and expand the tax base. Thank you for your time. I hope to hear from you on April 2nd with your vote.